Hello, everybody. So today I want to address a question I've received in the comment section, which is Tesla a threat to Enphase? And that is a very fair question for anybody to ask because Tesla has a lot of good things going for it in the home energy space, in the residential energy space, right? Which is the space for which I consider Enphase to be a leader. Enphase to me is the leading residential solar system, or at least the company that has the best shot at capturing the biggest share of that market. And Tesla has a solution too. And their solution is very popular. Tesla has the leading residential battery. The Tesla Powerwall is extremely popular. It has become a brand. It has become a piece of technology that a lot of people want to have in their home. That's point number one. Number two is Tesla as an integrated system. It's very similar to Enphase. It manages everything from your charging to rate arbitrage, to resell to the grid and buy from the grid when it's cheap. It manages your whole home, just like the Enphase app. And of course, it has features like charging your car, and you can charge your car from your Powerwall. And lastly, what else Tesla has is its expertise. Tesla has a lot of scale and expertise. They use an older chemistry for their battery, which is a Cobalt Based chemistry, which is part of the reason why the prices have been dropping on these battery packs, and they are fairly inexpensive compared to what you can find in the market right now, those Tesla packs. But a new battery may be coming soon. But beyond that, their expertise in battery chemistry and manufacturing at scale can't be underplayed, right? They are a leading player in battery manufacturing, and thus it makes sense because they have such volume for their cars that they would also be able to supply the market with a very large number of Powerwalls. So for all of these reasons, it's a fair question to ask, is Tesla a threat to Enphase? In this video, in this matchup, if you will, this sizing up, is it a real threat? I'm going to address four main things. First of all is the battery chemistry. Second of all is the brand and the status symbol of the battery. Then we have DC and AC coupled systems. What's the difference and why it's important to talk about this whenever you put electricity in your homes and whenever you have an energy generation system on your roof. It's important to talk about how much power you can be generating because that can be dangerous. And then we're talking about installer networks versus vertical integration. No surprise here, Tesla is obviously the vertically integrated provider of solar, and that has some issues if you're vertically integrated, namely you can't grow as fast. So I just want to go through all of this and kind of answer this question as fairly as I can, knowing that I can actually be very fair on this question because I own both stocks. Tesla is my number one position and Enphase is my number two positions. I own both companies, so I don't have any pre-built bias. I mean, I try to not have any bias regardless, but this one, I think I can provide some insights. So let me get started. So first of all, let's talk about battery chemistries. I believe, before I even begin, that Tesla is the most fierce competitors when it comes to the batteries. Their Powerwalls, they were a pioneer. They were the first one to create it. And the Powerwall of Tesla is in very high demand. You have people who will install Powerwalls just to do rate arbitrage, and the system can do that. You have people who will install Powerwalls to become off-grid. You have people who will install Powerwalls actually with non-Tesla solar roofs or non-Tesla system. They'll just order the Powerwall on the website and install it themselves. There are local pro installed, very popular in Australia, for example. They do a lot of that. Some people will mix and match. They'll have the Powerwall, the Tesla Powerwall, and then they'll put some over solar component or even some over energy producing component. So Tesla Powerwall is very, very popular, but it is also old, and they've gone through quite a few versions. I believe they are the fourth version now since 2015. But since it is old, they use Cobalt Based chemistries. And this is where one of the debates come up. It's well accepted that LFP batteries are the safest batteries because you don't have as much issues with expansion. You don't have to cool them with a fan. You don't have as many issues with LFP batteries. And here the problem is that Tesla uses Cobalt-based batteries, which some people have concerns about, and you need to maintain your battery much more if you're going to have a Cobalt-based battery. And here I believe Enphase wins because to me there's going to be a problem. If we agree that better batteries are LFP batteries, which is what the science seems to say and what people in the industry seems to say. If we agree that that's the better type of batteries, that's a problem for Tesla because the better battery for putting in your garage, right, is also the better battery to put in your car. And Tesla has a very strong incentive to use its LFP batteries where it's going to make the most money, which is in your car. And so we will see, because Powerwall needs to be updated, there's going to be a new Powerwall coming up. We will see what type of battery they come up with, what type of chemistry they come up with, and if they find a way to make it ever more safe. And I am not criticizing the safety of Tesla batteries. They're actually very, very reliable. But when it comes to storing 13 kilowatt hours in a tiny box on the wall, it only makes sense that any homeowner will want the safest thing, because this is not a vacuum cleaner, right? This is something that can have a really negative impact on your house if it were to catch on fire. Namely, your house would get on fire. So customers, whether it is for cars or whether it is for homes, they have an incentive to always want something safer. Right now, the Tesla battery is not the latest tech, and this is what Enphase claims, but LFP, if you follow Tesla a lot, there's a lot of benefits to LFP batteries. They are namely safer. So that's point number one, and in my view, Enphase wins here. Point number two, however, is the brand, and this is where Tesla wins, and it's not even close. I don't have any issue imagining people getting out of their way to buy a Tesla solar system, an entire Tesla system, because they want the Powerwall. The Powerwall is very attractive to a lot of people in the home improvement space and in the home space. Have you ever been to a home improvement show or a solar show? If you go to a solar show, you'll see solar installers, they'll have one Powerwall. And if they put the Powerwall at the home show or the home and garden show, whatever, and they put the Powerwall, those booths will be attracting many, many more people than if you don't put the Powerwall. The Powerwall has almost become a status symbol, right? Bragging rights in fancy neighborhoods. You have designer homes, architects who integrate Powerwalls in their design. It's become close to a status symbol. And I realize this sounds very silly. It's a battery. Who cares, right? It's a battery. Who cares? Well, sure, who cares? But if you look at the history of things that we didn't used to take for granted, which I view as will be taken for granted, right? Today, it's not well accepted that we're all going to store our energy, on a back wall somewhere in the back of the house. We're going to have 10 of these, 8 of these, 5 of these, depending on our region, and that's going to be our energy, and we're all going to live off-grid, and most houses will be off-grid. That's my vision for the next 10 years. Today, this is not a well-accepted vision, and because of that, whenever you adhere to that vision, there is a general view that you should go for a status symbol, or that you have some status, if that makes any sense. And that the only way I can describe this is that if you look at the early days of new appliances for homes, they've always been status symbols. So refrigerators, right? So if you know anything about refrigerators, when they came out, that was a tremendous thing. That was a tremendous status symbol to have a refrigerator. Most people would drive to an ice box, get a big box of ice and put it in a giant cooler, and the ice would melt over a week. That's how it used to be done. And then all of a sudden you have this thing, electric, you plug it in and it creates cold. That was amazing back then, right? The same can be said for, say, dishwashers. That was the same story. Think about radios, early days radios, or even color TVs, right? Or TVs in general. This was one of the very first TV. These items, became status symbols because they were so technologically advanced. And therefore, it is not surprising to me that a lot of people are drawn to the Tesla Powerwall because it is the brand. It is the status symbol. It is the first one who came out in the market, at least in the mass market. So this is something where Tesla really, really, really wins. And this is something that you could criticize Enphase for, and that maybe Enphase needs to build a brand a little bit and work on branding and work on making sure that things look good. There's this thing called the what is beautiful is good phenomenon, and we don't really understand it, but we're attracted to beautiful objects, beautiful things, and you know, it's all relative, of course, but it's not just a technology. When you see the most popular battery being used as a status symbol in the fancier parts of town. It is not that far-fetched to me to call it a status symbol, and this is where the Powerwall wins and is far ahead of Enphase. Most people know what a Powerwall look like, at least in that space. Most people have no idea what an Enphase battery looks like, and this would be an interesting test to make. Okay. So Tesla wins on branding. Moving on to the third system, and this is where I have to talk about solar. So you have AC coupled versus DC coupled system. So as far as the battery goes, even though Tesla started with a DC coupled batteries, they quickly realized that the battery should be AC coupled. So they both have AC coupled batteries. It's a draw here. However, if you get a Tesla system, you still have the issue that the fact that those Powerwalls, if you get a full system, they're going to pair with a Tesla string inverter. A string inverter, in my view, is an older technology. It's a less reliable technology. It is not consumer electronics. It is an appliance. That's the best way I describe it. A string inverter is a very heavy, bulky piece of equipment that typically has a very, very heavy transformer in it, right? If you compare, if you take battery chargers and think about charging your phone, you charge your phone, 30 years ago when phones first came out, you had a very bulky transformer, right? That you would put it in the wall and it was heavy. And today, of course, you charge your phone. It's a teeny tiny USB thing with a bridge of diodes, and it's just electronics doing the inversion of the current. So you have one item, one charger, or one inverter, one transformer that is fully electronics. Very easy to manufacture, scalable piece of technology. And then you have an old piece of technology, which is the string inverter, which is heavy, which is a less reliable technology. So anyways, even though Tesla has a premium string inverter, because it has 4 strings, that's why I call it a little premium. They're trying to kind of go for a hybrid here, but I don't think it's really working. There's a lot of issues with string inverters. Let me go through the issues of string inverters, why I'm really pounding the table on microinverters. I believe microinverters will be the main technology for solar. That's the technology that makes the most sense. But just a few issues with string inverters. First of all, installers. Installers are largely adopting microinverters. They much prefer them. You put a panel, you put a tiny box, the DC is converted into AC, and the fact that you have AC at the panel level makes wiring much, much, much easier, because how many people with electricity training, how many electricians do you know are trained in DC? Very few, actually, right? Most electricians understand AC. Few of them understand DC as well, even though, you're in science class, it seems pretty straightforward. When you're on a rooftop, it's not that straightforward. Contractors like AC, they know AC, they understand AC. Not DC. The AC-DC war, if you watch the film The Current Wars, amazing film, by the way, on business history, AC won for a reason. So that's one aspect. Another aspect of it is, of course, let's say you have a string inverter, you install it on a string. Typically, as an installer, you're going to give a warranty to your customer. Imagine a panel's defective. You have to go back on the roof, and you have to individually remove each panel on the string and test all 6 panels or all 8 panels on that string. You have to remove them, test them. It's not as easy as having a tiny microinverter under each solar panel, and that tiny microinverter will monitor the panel and will tell you right away which panel is working, which panel is not working, what's the problem, what's not the problem. So that's the reason, one of the reasons why I believe microinverters are a better system. Then you have local codes. So if you follow local codes, And by the way, I mostly follow this in the US, not necessarily in Europe, but in the US, I can tell you one thing is that firefighters do not like DC. And they do not like to put out a fire when there's 600 volts on the roof on DC lines, right? They love shutoffs. And many local codes in the US have started putting shutoffs and requiring an easy shutoff of the power on your solar plant on the roof in case of a fire. And of course, companies like SolarEdge and other players have come up with optimizers. But, I mean, and I say this respectfully, optimizers seem to me like a patch to a tech that has a fundamental flaw, which is you are doing the inverting and the transformer is in your garage. And, you know, electricity is produced 2 stories up on the roof, which means that you have to both put the string inverter in the garage, but you also have to put a tiny box, an optimizer, under each panel on the roof. Each panel has to get that tiny box. And then the question is, why wouldn't you just put a tiny box called a microinverter and entirely get away with no string inverter, entirely remove string inverters, just work with those tiny boxes under each panel? And by the way, your installers are going to love it, right? The installer of solar systems are going to love it because they don't have to attach this very heavy string inverter on the wall. They just attach tiny boxes under each panel while they're on the roof. And it's, I don't know how to say it otherwise. It's to me, it seems redundant, but not redundant in a good way. You have a redundancy of the optimizer because you're trying to comply with the local codes. And then lastly, and this is safety, right? I talked about safety and why a homeowner, even though the Powerwall and the Enphase system are both safe, I think the homeowner, when it comes to the safety of their home, they're always going to want the safest option. And the safest option is a cobalt-free type of battery. I think this is the same story for having strings of DC current go through your house. And this is not Tesla's data, by the way. This is not this is SMA. SMA is a traditional maker of string inverters. And if you look at the data, you know, I'm taking the more powerful one here just to make a point. But the point is that if you get the more powerful string inverter from SMA, so kind of a competitor of SolarEdge, although SolarEdge has one over them, I just want to say, do you want to have a casual 5,000 watts at 600 volt going through your roof down to your garage? Do you want that? Because I don't. Because 5,000 watts, that's, you know, we're talking stuff that is quite dangerous, you know, and if it's installed improperly. And I understand why someone would want a much more simple AC coupled system where your solar panels just put AC power out and it's all easily connected through AC because electricians know AC. We know AC. We've dealt with AC for over 100 years. So sorry to get a little technical here, but that's kind of necessary to understand the difference, right? Not all systems are the same. DC coupled systems are suboptimal in my view. They are. I mean, they for now, as we do this transition, AC coupled system, I believe, are much better understood by us. And then the last point is what? Is the installers. That's the last point. So if you're interested in getting a Tesla Powerwall and a Tesla roof, it's useful to watch a lot of videos of people who have gotten solar roofs. And you'll know that Tesla is a near vertically integrated installer of solar, right? So you'll be assigned to an advisor. And that advisor will work with you, and each step will take weeks. And so, of course, you'll have a fancy dashboard, and you'll know how many weeks are left. But what I've seen is that 6 months from first contact on the website to solar on your roof is not an uncommon time frame for Tesla. Now, I've also seen a few YouTubers talking that they had it in 1 month. So I just want to be fair here, but that depends on where you're located, and why would Tesla be slower to install these solar panels? Well, the reason for that is because they're trying to do everything vertically integrated. So when you go on their website, right, they're hiring roofers, installers, electricians, and they'll train you and they'll hire you, right? They have their own Tesla teams. That makes sense, right? Tesla does everything in-house. They are the epitome of the vertically integrated firm. But in the case of solar, that means you're not going to be able to move as fast as, say, Enphase, who uses third-party installers, right? And so you're not going to be able to move as fast. And so that's kind of an issue for me because, again, growing fast, scaling up, and this technology, in my view, will scale up very, very, very fast. That means that if you have to go at the speed of human resources and higher at the speed of human resources, you're never going to be able to grow this as fast as you scale a plant that just makes Tesla cars, right? Being vertically integrated for selling a car, that makes a lot of sense, right? You just have a truck, drop the vehicle off, and that's it. That makes a lot of sense. That's very, very, very low amount of labor. A truck drops the vehicle off. You can vertically integrate that. Going on a roof, right? You have to coordinate different professions, and you have to do it in a hyper-local way with hyper-local codes. That requires a lot of human resources, and this is where I believe Enphase has an edge, and Enphase wins. Because in my view, Enphase is scaling really fast and they'll keep scaling. So if you follow Enphase, you'll know that they are installer obsessed. I guess it's a word I just made up. They're installer obsessed. Like, for example, they talk about their support for installers and their support for consumers, and they make sure that both people are very, very happy, and they have a redundant system so that if there is an issue with, say, their battery, well, that's okay because the battery has like 5 different microinverters, and one microinverter can fail and the system just doesn't stop working. It's a highly redundant system, which makes customers happy and which makes installers happy, because as an installer, if you have an issue in a solar system and you have to go back on a warranty call, that's going to be a full day of work for you, and you're not going to get paid, right? You're not going to get paid, or you're going to get pennies compared to what you would get paid if you did a multiple install. So Enphase is scaling very fast because they're using installers, because they have a network of thousands of installers who are motivated, through their own, get rich kind of personal gain. If you're an installer, you want to make it big. You want to be a premium installer in your region, and that's what you do. You're not a plumber. You're not an AC specialist, you're a solar specialist. It's a new profession, and these professions, when they partner with Enphase, Enphase benefits from the motivation from these sellers. They benefit from them financing on their own their outside operations. They benefit from them dealing with their own HR. Kind of works like a franchise, and that's I think the better way to grow in the space of solar and installing solar, which is hyper local. One has to ask themselves is if Tesla scales vertically to the whole United States, how many tens of thousands of people will they have to hire just to do that, right? And you just can't hire 10,000 people in 1 year. It's not that easy. It's not that easy to find the right people. Enphase, I believe, as the better way to do that, and this is why, if you actually look at the data, most Enphase system, the standard one, right? Not the more complicated ones, but they can be installed in 1 day. 1 day, wake up early, end of day, you're done. Tesla systems, they can take up to 7 days to get installed. So that's another reason why one company is scaling, in my view, much faster than the other in that field of solar. So in conclusion, because I have a conclusion, there is a moral to the story. So is Tesla a threat to Enphase? Question number 1. It's yes and no. The answer is yes and no. Yes, it is a threat to Enphase for battery-only systems. There is no doubt in my mind that when it comes to battery-only systems, it is a threat to Enphase. Think of it as the residential user who's seeking either a power backup system or a rate arbitrage system. So a rate arbitrage system is when you have a special utility bill where, say, electricity is dirt cheap at night, but costs a fortune during the day. So if you have a system where your electric provider charges you next to nothing at night for electricity, but 10 times as much during the day, you'll have people who will just install a Powerwall. They'll draw electricity at night when it's cheap, and then they will reuse their own electricity during the day that they've stored. It's actually a pretty big market. I believe for those, Tesla is a fierce competitor for those systems, because remember, those systems don't take that many installs. They can be installed by electricians, those systems, and you as a consumer, you can just go on the Tesla website and order a battery pack, and the battery pack gets delivered, and then you either install it yourself or call your local electrician, and your local electrician just installs it for you for about $2,000, right? That's roughly the price I've seen. $2,000 is what you have to pay an electrician to install that. So that's a big threat, and we understand why it's a threat intuitively, because Tesla will ship a car and deliver a car to your local delivery center or to your home very easily. They can do the same thing with a battery wall, with a Powerwall. You order a Powerwall, they deliver it, drop it at your house. Easy for them to scale like that. So they're a threat. By the way, this is a threat to Enphase, of course, but this is an even bigger threat to Generac. Like I wouldn't imagine owning Generac or thinking about Generac right now. This is a major threat to Generac, because if you look at the Generac business, it's all about the power backup business. So your power, the grid comes off. You don't want to lose the freezer. You don't want to lose the fridge. You don't want to lose the AC. The Generac comes on, and they're very loud, old pieces of appliances from the 70s, right? Very loud generators. The battery packs are a major threat to that, and I believe in that case, yes, battery-only systems. Tesla is a threat for battery-only systems for Enphase, but they're also an even bigger threat to Generac. So that's kind of my view. Is Tesla a threat to Enphase when it comes to the solar component of the equation itself? And in my view, the answer to that is no. Because in my view, string inverters are not the way to go. Microinverters are the way to go. I understand why Tesla has a lot of legacy debt or technical commitment to the string inverter, because, for example, they have their solar tiles. The solar tile, which is good-looking tiles for your roof. It's kind of a legacy product that they have, kind of a niche product, very niche. A tile that kind of looks like a shingle, but kind of looks like a solar panel. Yeah, for that I understand why you would need a string inverter. But I think there's a little bit of technical debt that Tesla has, in the sense that this is stuff from Solar City, and this is stuff that dates back from 2015. And so in my view, for the solar components, Enphase has a better solution. And furthermore, of course, it takes months to get an install, which is also why I don't think Tesla is too big of a threat for the solar component of Enphase, because it takes months to get an install. But what is the thing to watch for, right? Tesla has some of the best engineers in the world out there. They probably see what we see. And so what are the things to watch for? Well, what would be a big threat for me would be if they released a microinverter. If Tesla released a microinverter, I think that would be a big threat to Enphase. And we'll see what they end up doing. They could do that. They could do that. Elon Musk, he's a first principles thinker. If you think about first principles, there's a lot of things that make sense about microinverters. So that could happen. And then another one is Tesla adopting an installer model. I see this also as the main threat number 2. And the reason for that is because the adoption of solar is now, right? Adoption is now. To me, this is not something that's going to take 20 years. It's not like you have enough time to build a large amount of staff and buy trucks and all that. No, to me, that innovation is happening right now. People are getting those roofs right now. The quickest way to compete right now is to co-opete, i.e. you become partners with installers, you share in the profits, but you also sell more systems. And that's why both SolarEdge and Enphase, which use installers, sell way more systems. And by the way, I think this is less likely. Adopting the installer model, I think this is less likely for Tesla to do that, because Tesla loves vertical integration. They love owning and controlling their entire value chain, a little bit like many of the aspects of Apple, for example. So they are a vertically integrated business. I think this could be a cultural clash for them if they move to an installer system. And the moral of the story, or the conclusion at the end, is that I own both stocks. Tesla is my number 1 position, Enphase is my number 2 position. If you look at the return of both of these companies, this is Charlie Belillo, popular Twitter account. If you look, he's done it right. Past 5 years, past 10 years, these companies really didn't exist 15 and 20 years ago, so that doesn't count. But if you look past 5 and 10 years, Enphase returned more money than Tesla over the past 5 years. But then Tesla returned more money than Enphase over the past 10 years. And if I do my calculation as of August 2023, so as of today, the past 10 years, I'm not cherry picking any data. This is the literal data right now. The past 10 years, right, as is the norm. As of today is August 12th. Right, so as of August 12th, go back the past 10 years, you see Enphase returned 35.5%, Tesla returned 37.7%. So both companies are benefiting greatly from this revolution. Tesla's return can obviously mostly be explained by the car business, and Enphase is mostly explained by the solar business. But it's still quite impressive to see that over the long run, these companies have returned an outstanding return. Own both, love both, and planning to own both for the next 10 years. That is my plan. Thank you so much for watching. This was not investment advice. This is just entertainment. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, please subscribe. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks for watching.